Welcome to the Salt Strong Fishing Podcast. Salt Strong has been helping saltwater anglers catch more fish in less time for 10 years and is now the largest and most trusted saltwater fishing community in America. If you want to catch more saltwater fish, then keep listening. If you want to speed up your fish catching results even faster, then join the private insider community at saltstrong.com. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
Unlocking the easy relationship button. Hey everybody, Joe Simons, like diamonds, back again with Salt Strong UNCHURCHED, bright and early morning. I'm recording this at 5-something a.m. And here's the bad news. I'll make it short and sweet. There is no easy relationship button. It does not exist. There is no easy relationship button. There's no easy life button. God did not even put us on this earth so that we would coast through life, right? He didn't put us on this earth just to only have challenges and frustrations and suffering either. But the way that we grow, as we've talked about many times on this podcast, the way that we grow, the way that we build relationships, the way that we grow as human beings, and the way that we're able to teach others is through some challenges, is through some tougher times, is through getting over the mountain, if you will. And so that does mean, there's going to be times where you feel like you're climbing the mountain, where you're facing a challenge, something that is tough. And there are times where you feel like you're kind of going downhill, right? We all have them. We tend to get stuck on and probably remember the tougher ones because, let's face it, they were tougher, right? They stick with us longer. They're ironically more important to us because we usually saw some sort of life change there. And this kind of podcast happened because of something with one of my kids. I won't say which one, in case I have any other friends from hometown listening. This is not a bad thing at all, but one of my kids had come home and said that so and so had said something, pretty mean to them, and they were just wanting to write the whole person off because of one mean thing. And so I'm kind of listening and hearing more. And in between you and me, it wasn't that bad. But, when you start talking about, all my kids are 13 and under. So it was, younger kid stuff that they just hadn't heard before and hadn't had a friend kind of say to them. And so as I was walking them through it, I said, well, listen, I said, I know something about this person that you might not know. And looked at me like, what do you mean? And I said, well, I know that this child that you're talking about has a sibling who is disabled, just like my brother Daniel, Dan the man, your Uncle Daniel. And kind of looking at me like, okay. And I said, well, I'm going to tell you something I haven't really shared with anyone. When I was younger, about your age, I kind of got into an argument with my parents. And I thought it was unfair that they spent so much time with Daniel and didn't seem to love me. Boom. Mic drop, right? And I share this with you because so many people are going through things, and not just kids, but even adults. And so put yourself in my shoes. We'll kind of walk through that, and then I'll go back to my kid's situation. Then we'll go back to you. So when you're young, you're trying to figure out life, and I'm talking that 6 to 12 range, and you want to be loved. You want to feel loved. There's times where you're confused and you want to come home and know that someone does love you. And, my younger brother, Daniel, if you haven't met him or heard about him, he's got very severe cerebral palsy, can't walk, can't talk, and he still can't to this day. He's about to turn 40 years old and still has never walked, still has never talked. I mean, he can't do anything by himself. Well, he can't do most things by himself. He can't make a meal. He can't change his clothes, can't go to the bathroom, can't shower, can't brush his teeth. I mean, every single little thing, can't get in bed, can't get out of bed. Every little step of his day, there's usually some human interaction to help him. And so as a really youngster, imagine someone like that who is essentially has no muscle memory at all. If you know anything about cerebral palsy, you're just all your muscles are weaker. So his brain is there. He's crazy smart. His IQ is off the charts, but everything else just won't move. So when he was, I'm 6 years or 5, 6 years older than him. So just say I was 10, he's 4. I mean, it was just like a rag doll. And so my parents were having to give him the vast majority of their time. And they had stuff going on, right? My parents were working and trying to just make life happen and ends meet. And, I remember my brother and I both were just like, man, this stinks. Our parents don't love us. They spend all the time with Daniel. And even though we were smart enough to understand that he was disabled and we obviously loved him, it wasn't anything against him. But I remember feeling some jealousy and resentment, really just towards my parents. Like, man, why aren't you guys spending time? You spend all your time with him. You don't even talk to us. We're almost like the neglected kids. And, my parents handled it perfectly and explained, hey, I mean, we love you all the same. Like, but look how blessed you are. You can go out there and kick the soccer ball. Daniel can't even make it to the next room. I mean, he can't do anything. He's got to have us there to wipe his fanny and his and literally every single thing that he does needs help, and we can't neglect him. And so that was an aha moment, for me. I think it meant more just hearing my parents say that. Oh yeah, they really did love us, and obviously went out of their way to do special things with us. And ended up getting some help with aids that we could, go do things as a family. And long story short, I said, you know what, your friend might be going through something similar right now. They have a sibling who is extremely disabled and takes a ton of time and energy, and they might just not be feeling loved. And I remember taking it out on other people sometimes, right? Where you just get frustrated when you're young and you don't know how to handle your emotions, and you can outburst on someone, maybe even bully someone. I wasn't really much of a bully myself, but I could see how that would easily transpire into bullying or being mean to someone or saying something that you didn't really mean, just because you weren't feeling the love at home. So I think the message hit home to my kids and realize, yeah, you know what, it's not something that maybe I did, because my child was just wondering, like, did I do something? Like, I don't even know what I did. And I was like, you probably didn't. Like, sometimes this is just something that the other person's having to deal with. And I said, you know what, the best thing that you could possibly do is talk to them and just say, hey, here's what you said the other day, and here's how it made me feel, and just let I love you, and just leave it at that and watch what happens. Talk about a mic drop. So imagine that someone does say something mean, and you give it a day or two, and you go up to them and just say, hey, you know what, Joe, you said this to me the other day, and it really hurt. But I just want to tell you, man, I still love you. I love you. Or I forgive you. And I'm thinking about you. Let me know if I can ever help you out in any way, and just leave it at that. You'll be amazed what happens. You'll be amazed that all of a sudden any other pretense or anger or whatever that person experiencing just kind of melts away. And many times that's how the best relationships are built. And I mentioned this before on a podcast with some friends, just going through some tough times with relationships and divorce, and not in all cases, but in many of the cases, there was usually something that, and it wasn't like this magical tipping point. If only I'd said something right here, but there was usually something that happened where the one person wishes, man, I wish I just addressed this 3 years ago, 10 years ago, whenever. And because they didn't, it was going to make the relationship tougher by having a tough conversation, right? Because that's not easy to do. It's not easy to go up to someone, even if it's your own spouse, and have that honest conversation about how they're making you feel, or here's what I really need to have a successful relationship. So many times we just kind of put it off, and then we put it off, and then we put it off. And all of a sudden a year goes by, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. And then it starts building into resentment, right? And then you almost forget, like, oh yeah, it's just all that other person's fault. And before you know it, the relationship's falling apart. And so I look back at in my relationship with my wife and my relationship with some of my closest friends. In every single case, the ones that I'm closest with, I've had a tough conversation. Like we've been through something that maybe could have even split us apart. It was that tough and uncomfortable. And so I urge you, if you are going through something with anyone, regardless of it's spouse, kids, whatever, brother, sister, not talking to you, or family member, have those tough conversations. As I said I think it was the 2 podcasts ago, the best time to grow a pine tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is today, meaning it's never too late. Take action and just do it. There is no easy button. You're not going to be able to hit it. It will be uncomfortable. It will make you almost probably feel like you're going to puke, right? That's how I felt. It's just like when I have to fire someone at our company. I get sick to my stomach every time that morning of, but every single time I've done it, there's just massive relief. And I pray like crazy that God just speaks through me. And that would be my recommendation to you is, say some prayers that God just speak through me. don't, don't, don't let me be speaking. You speak through me. Let this just go magically, and let this bond us, let this actually grow us somehow. Even if you can't see it, it is amazing what the power of a real, true, conversation will do to a relationship. Yeah. One other thing on relationships, and I think this is something that I got wrong for a long time, and I believe many of us do get wrong, is we think that the other person is there to kind of like fill us up, like fill up our cup. So imagine that you've got a cup and it's like it's you, it's your energy, and it's your little cup you're holding on to. And this is obviously not real life, but just imagine that you're holding on to this cup and you obviously want it full meaning you're feeling fulfilled. Things are great in life. They're not perfect, but they're great. You've got good energy, and you're just in one of those good spots. So that's a full cup. And many of us aren't full. I think most of us would agree we're not. Or maybe we even half empty more so than we are full, and sometimes even fully empty when we just feel like we've given it all, or it's just a tough time with a family member going through some illness or passing away or problems with kids or whatever it is, stress. Many of us just feel like, man, we're running on empty all the time, right? I mean, how many times do you hear people say that? I just feel like I'm running on empty. And what I've seen, and even in my relationship with my wife, is a lot of times we will hit that point and we're almost kind of counting on the other person to fill us up. And I think the other person can help a little bit, but it's God. I mean, throughout the Bible, it talks about God is the one filling up your cup. And then this is a big reason why I'm doing Unchurched. It's not just about me and you, not just about us as humans on this earth. It all goes back to God. When we have a prayer request, yeah, let's go to God. When we have a big dream or a big problem, let's go to God. And when we need our cup filled up, go to God. And where I'm going with this, because I've seen this happen as well with even some close friends who did go through divorce. The other person was just assuming that their spouse was going to be the one that was going to fill up their cup. And because they didn't go to God to say, God, all right, give me some peace, give me some understanding, give me some rest, God. And instead of doing that, they kept going to their spouse. The spouse like, I literally can't fill up your cup. And there became a lot of resentment. And the other person was like, well, I married this person so that, that we could work together and they could lift me up. And they didn't say that out loud, but that was kind of the mentality behind the scenes. And that's not fair to a relationship. So if that's part of your problem, thinking, hey, this is kind of like my easy button, that my spouse is going to, fill me up and always just be the person that's going to help me get up to a full cup and not run on empty. That's not the case. And that's I think that's just setting you up for failure, unfortunately. Now, the beauty of it is those tough conversations, fortunately, you're not having to have them all the time, but those things actually do start filling up your cup. So you can have your cup filled by having those tough conversations with other people, other relationships in your life. But as I said, that's not something that happens all the time. I know every single time I've done it, I've had that tough conversation where everything inside of me is telling me to put it off. Right? You felt that before, where you know you need to do it, but you're making every excuse. You know what? I'll do it tomorrow. Today's rainy. Today's Cinco de Mayo. We start making up stuff, and everything about you wants to just put it off and do it the next day or the next day or the next day. And when you finally do it, though, there's just this massive relief, and ironically, your cup starts getting filled up. And many times, not all the time, there's some relationships that just need to go, that are just unhealthy, that are toxic, that you need to get away from as fast as you can. But in general, most of the time when you have those hard relationships with someone you truly do care about, it does bring you closer together. Even my brother Daniel and I, right? You would have thought, oh man, maybe you hated him your whole life. No, that brought us so much closer together. In fact, Dan the man brought our whole family closer together. If you want to talk about no easy relationship button, I mean, who would have ever thought, right? My parents never in a million years would have prayed that they would have a very disabled kid to bring our family together. And looking at all the things that happen to our family, from deaths in the family to the good things, to the vacations and the fun times, there was not one thing, not one, that brought us together closer than Dan the man. Think about that. That's certainly not perfect, but man, maybe it is. Maybe that's what God's view of perfection is. So I share that with you to say there is no easy button. There's no perfect relationship. And I think the way to get closer to that perfect relationship, or that perfection, or that easy button, is to have the tough conversations. Right? It is the challenges, it is the tough things that do lift us up, that do grow us, that bring us closer together. And just looking back through my life and my relationships that I've had, there have been ups and downs, but man, it's those tougher conversations that just where you become flat out honest and do it in full love. If you go in with anger, if you go in there with resentment, you're going to have a tough time steering that ship and turning it around. But you got to go in with just love and compassion and gratitude, all the things that we've talked about on this podcast for so long. And you only do that not through another partner who's not going to give you all that. It's through God. So pray to God. Ask him to speak through you. That's something I do. I do that every time before these podcasts. Like, God, don't let me be in charge of this podcast. I need you to speak through me. And it's really funny. I'll get messages, and thank you guys for the emails. I'll get some messages sometimes where someone will like quote something that I said in the podcast. And they're like, man, this hit home with me. I thought you were talking to me. I don't even remember saying it. Like it's eerie. And I'll have to go back and listen. There's been a couple times I had to go back and listen. I was like, did I say that? It sounded like something I'd say. And boom, there it is. I'm like, man, that was God speaking through me. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And it's something I do pray about every time. Like, God, speak through me. And every time I'm having any kind of big conversation, I sit there in silence and I pray, God, just speak through me. Take the wheel, if you will, and really just be the lead on this conversation. And so if there was something I said in any podcast, I'd love to hear about it. It might surprise me that I even came out of my mouth. Love you guys so much. And my email is joe, at saltstrong.com. Have those tough conversations. You know which one I'm talking about. The one that's been on your mind, the one you wake up thinking about, the one that you think about at nighttime, the one that you think about during the daytime. It's something that you know you need to have. Just do it. Pray that God will be with you, and just watch the magic that happens. You will see your cup filled up. You will even see the other person's cup filled up. As much as it might be hard to imagine that, because you think everything's just going to go bad and it's going to ruin everyone's life, it won't. If you do it with sincerity and honesty and love and compassion and even some gratitude that you're even having the opportunity to maybe repair a relationship or to further build it, that's when the magic happens. So do it. Love you guys. Chat soon.
Want more fishing tips, shortcuts, and tools so you can catch more fish per trip? Then head over to saltstrong.com now and join the movement. Tight lines, and thanks for listening.